This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Hi, thank you so much for being a part of Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein, and this is where we talk about the things we're dealing with and experiencing as parents, both big and small, and go to the experts for advice. Today, we're talking about the high school experience, and it is an eye-opening conversation with two types of experts. First, a decades-long high school guidance counselor who has seen so many changes over the years and what kids are dealing with, especially when it comes to the mental health crisis right now. She's also a mom who knows about this firsthand as well. And then this is pretty special because we are going to hear directly from two high school students. It is a candid conversation about the pressures and the stresses they are facing. They're going to also talk about the efforts they're making through the Kyle Cares Foundation to help make sure that no one struggles with mental health alone. We're going to share more about that too. Guidance counselor Melissa Fowler is who we're going to hear from first. She is helping us as parents understand what kids are coming to her about and what she is seeing firsthand. And then Charlie Anania and Sean Allen join the conversation. They're seniors at Greeley High School in Maine and just remarkable young men with so much good insight for all of us parents to take away. And they are doing some really, really good work inside their school. Check it out. Melissa, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Such an important one to be having for so many reasons. And we're going to talk about the organization, the group that you put together at your school as part of this conversation. But first, let's just talk in generalities about the issues and the things that you're seeing inside the school. You've been a counselor for what, almost 30 years at this point?
A little under 30.
A little under 30 years. So what is happening inside of schools that parents may not know about right now?
I think there's been a giant shift, and maybe partly to do with COVID, but a shift in, I think in large part, social media. Something that's really different for kids. It's constant, whether it's buzzing in their hand or their screen is notifying them of something. And there are great things about social media, but there are also some negative things about social media. There's not a lot of time for reflection, and kids sometimes just respond immediately, maybe not thoughtfully. There's a lot of hurtful things that are said and done. And so I think the parameters and the education around that are very different, and it impacts the kids absolutely social and emotionally. And when they're dysregulated with that, they're often dysregulated in school and then unable to access their education. And so I think curbing that and maybe some education around that is certainly important. We do that at our school through the library and our librarian, and giving some education around what's appropriate and what is not, and just trying to help with that, even in health class as well. So trying to maintain the balance of just themselves.
So social media is a big factor, huge factor. And, to your point, it's all the constant pinging and dinging. And, I have these conversations with my daughter who's in 10th grade. Your phone needs to be turned off. When she first got that phone, she had every notification for every app turned on. And it was like constantly pinging and dinging. Right. So we've had those conversations, but that's stressful. And then you have the aspect of social media where you are in constant comparison with others.
Right.
So how have you seen that specifically impact the mental health of kids?
Yeah. So on multiple levels, and not just the social emotional level, but the academic as well. And to your point, with the notifications on the phone, kids' Google Classroom comes up, or kids are texting each other or calling each other about this homework, this project. Did you do that? I mean, it's constant.
Yes.
It is just constantly in their face if their phones are set to those settings that are seeing those. And also, I would just say to digress a quick second, but parents parents are contacting their kids consistently through school, whether it's through text or whatever platform that they are communicating with them. Did you check this portal for college? I saw you got this grade in math class. The student doesn't even know about the grade yet. So they're checking these things, and that's very stressful for the kiddo to be able to process where they are at and kind of go through their day in a balanced, thoughtful way. So there are a lot of outside factors that are just constantly at them, just constant. And so that's detrimental to kids. And I think that they need a little bit of a break, and teachers are like, where are you going? And they're like, well, my mom's on the phone in the middle of class.
I was so surprised by that last year. So when my daughter was a freshman, and she texted me at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
aren't you in class?
Yeah. Like what? She's like, no, people are texting. I was like, Livy, put your phone away.
Yeah.
And now it has just kind of become a little commonplace where you check in, where she'll just say, hey, is somebody able to pick me up after track?
Sure.
And that kind of thing. But there is no putting phones away during class time.
Some teachers, and some teachers have like a box in the front, or and they're balancing that out because these kids are learning and growing and hopefully maturing and understanding, maybe not having it out all the time, but also the access to the phone of cheating and feeling the pressure and perfectionism, and I'm comparing myself to somebody else, and it's just, I feel for the kids because it's constant. Even when they're sitting in front of me in an appointment, they're constantly looking down, or the phone is buzzing on the desk and, they're looking at that way. Or I'm talking to one of my 4 children and I can hear it buzz. We're having a conversation and I can hear it through the phone.
I can actually feel a little like anxiety right now, just thinking about all the pinging and dinging and the things that are happening on phones, just like even just when you're at home. So social media, a major player in the mental health challenges that we're seeing with high school kids right now.
Yeah.
No secret there. When it comes to signs and symptoms, like what should we as parents be looking for when it comes to, my student may be struggling?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And noticing, so one of my 4 kids struggles with mental health, and he and I had a conversation last night about, what is it like for you as being the child in this situation, and what has been good, what's not been good? What about school and your peers and different things? As a school counselor, kind of guiding parents, I think one thing is, assessing what's going on. You know your kid best, right? And so simple things like self-care. Are they grooming? Are they brushing their teeth? Do they look different? Are they disheveled? Is there just an appearance difference? So there's that. Are they noticing any self-esteem shifts or social interaction shifts? Are they isolating? Are they not wanting to? They used to go out and now they're not wanting to anymore. Those are things to pay attention to. And not just, are you getting an A in class, but are you completing your work? Are you being effective and efficient? And is the work completion? Some parents, like I noted, they are in what we have at our school, Google Classroom. They can see what's been handed in when, and it's just a constant. And some parents aren't doing that, which is completely fine. There's not a right or wrong, but have you noticed that your kiddo is completing work? Are you even seeing them do any work? Sometimes kids get into the parallel of I'm behind, catch up, and it snowballs. And then they just stop and bury their head kind of thing. So assessing the problem that way. Are they isolating from family? Do you normally have dinner together, but they're not eating with you, or things like that? Are they irritable? Yeah, teens are all irritable. And we pepper our kids with questions. And so,
and sometimes you get answers and sometimes you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so are they sleeping more? Right. Or do you notice that you hear them up at midnight and they're still doing their work? So like their time management and or their executive functioning is off because they're just so stressed. Like we have kids who rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and it's never good enough. And they're hours and days.
Never good enough for them that the parents. Okay.
Well, that's a great question.
Right.
There's both. So never good enough for them, whether it's their own internal perfectionism or they're comparing themselves to a peer. That is a lot. Or the parents' expectations. And life is different. School is much different than when we were there, depending on, whose age, who's listening in their age. But that's just different. So noticing what's different with your kiddo, really being in tune to that. And we're all busy, right? But these are the simple things that you can look and assess to say like, oh, right, I see something is different.
But how do we talk to our teens about this? Because, as you alluded to, and having a teenager and a pre-teenager at home, they're not always like receptive to parents trying to broach the subject.
Yeah.
As a professional in this, like trying to get kids to talk, like, how do we communicate that we're worried with about our kids in a way that they'll be receptive to it?
That's a great question. And
because I get, I'm fine a lot.
Oh, totally. It's fine. No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most common. And even in personal and professionally, the kids all say that, right? Or it's not that deep.
It's not that deep. Right.
Like, or, something like that. And so, but there are ways to go about it. And it's interesting. Oftentimes parents will contact a school counselor and say, can you check in with my kid about this? Because they're just not being receptive. Coming from somebody else is fine. Right. A couple of things, talking to your kids, reassuring them their future is wide open and uncertainty is okay. It's okay not to have answers right now, and things are fluid. And I think also this is kind of a new shift in thought too, but like the growth mindset, that is a big, just having kids know that like they can take time and it's okay that this is taking time and whatever this is, right? Whether it's
and with growth mindset, let's explain what that is a little bit more, because it's basically like you're not peaking out in sixth grade as an honor roll kid,
right? That
you can still get to look ahead at what is possible versus you've already achieved
right
what's possible.
That's exactly it. The growth happens, if you're talking about, say, post-secondary aspirations of going to college, a lot of kids hit their stride their junior year. And post-secondary institutions are looking at that trajectory and, challenging themselves and stepping outside of the box and things like that. But I think it's also hard. Incoming 8th grade parent night. Mm-hmm. I get questions about what does my child need to take this year to start to get into Harvard? And
pressure.
And their child is standing there, and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so awesome to have those aspirations and goals and all of those things. But like that growth mindset, it's a journey, it's a balance, and everyone kind of hits that and addresses it at different times. And that's natural and that's okay. The other thing that parents can do too is maybe help manage stress, right? Our stress is different than their stress and is much different than we were in high school. So helping them maybe with their sleep habits. We were talking about the phone. Some parents literally shut their Wi-Fi off, so their kids can't go on their iPad or their watch or their phone or whatever.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be parents would like, I'll have your phone in the kitchen, but the kids then go down when the parents are sleeping, or I have the phone in the bedroom. But, helping them with their sleep. I mean, we're supposed to get 8 to 10 hours a night. These guys are not getting it's just not happening.
Right. And we do have a couple of the kids in your peer-to-peer group that are in the studio right now. And I see them shaking their head when you say turn off the Wi-Fi. But we'll get to that in just a little bit, guys.
And, I think also, so managing, if it's academics, teach them how to use a calendar. Teach them how to use the calendar in their phone, or have a whiteboard at home, or putting down assignments in a planner. Planners are epic and awesome. And we used to even sell them at school. But I'm like, well, how do you take care of your assignments? And kids are, I don't know. And they bring out their folders and it's a disaster.
But it's all, though, organized for them with like a Google Classroom and things like that. Plus, a lot of these kids are coming up in COVID where like these are simple skills that you learn in school, managing your work, managing a calendar, all that kind of thing. For one, it's done in a phone right now, kind of does it for you, or with Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Classroom. I mean, that's what I mean.
I mean, there's something to be said for like pen and paper, and then a checklist.
100%.
And kids are like, wait, what? And maybe that's old school, but managing their stress is that way. Teaching them how to respond to emails. Mm-hmm. Kids just ignore the emails because they don't know how to respond, or prioritizing balance. All right, so you've got this assignment, but you also have sports, and then you have Girl Scouts, or you have your job, or whatever. You have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, whatever it may be. Teaching them that balance, because I feel like the kids are go, 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 and there's not a lot of me time for downtime. But there are also 2 other things, and I'm sure you've heard of them. Some apps for kids, especially at night, the Calm app or Headspace.
Sure. Meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the kids are like, oh my God, Mrs. Fowler, really? And I'm like, just try it. And so it's been great. It works for some kids and it doesn't work for some kids, but it's something that a parent could also suggest.
Just taking 10 or 15 or 20 minutes at the end of the day and doing a guided meditation.
Right. Because I'll ask kids, what do you do at night? Well, I watch Netflix. And then they're tired and they're not turning it off, or they're snapping each other or whatever they're doing. So it's some downtime. Are you reading before bed? Do you need to take a warm shower before bed? So just really kind of helping them manage the stress and laying that out. I think also too, like, what role do they want? Like, have a conversation with your kid about, if you're in this group and you're not sure where you fit in, are you feeling like you want to be an active volunteer? Or what is your personality like? Do you want to be, are you a natural leader? Are you going to run for an office? Are you more of a planner? On the sport team, maybe you're not captain, but you're like the cheerleader of whatever role you're going to have. So I think that's important too, because having kids helping them figure out what their strengths are, because sometimes they just don't know. They're like, I'm not good at anything.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah.
They just don't know that, and I think, and it's not just social media, it's a lot of pressure from a lot of different places, but
what would be some red flags though? We can look at our teen and understand that, they're sleeping more, they're a little bit more disengaged. But when it comes to red flags, like, we need help, what are some of those?
So a lot of times it is, being disheveled, like you said, appearance, but those things, and just looking tired. They're distracted, irritable. And teachers often will say, there's something going on with Johnny. I can't put my finger on it, but something is different. Their work completion, things like that. And so it's a lot of what I had mentioned parents can look at to check in with about or for, and seeing if there's any shifts in that. I think that the red flags are also the isolation and not total change in habits. Was your kid going out all the time? Did their peer group change? And has it been a normal peer group that they've been with a lot, and now all of a sudden it's something else, somebody else? That's definitely a red flag, because kids will talk about how something happened and they don't feel welcomed anymore, or there was an incident, or it was an incident that didn't get discussed and everyone assumes, and it's all over social media and it was blast, And so that, if you notice that in your kid, like, well, why are you not with Beth and Susie anymore? Like, you've been with them for 4 years. So things like that. And I think too, I was talking to my son about this, one of my sons, and he was like, it's really hard when parents pepper you with questions, because we're worried.
Yes.
We're worried for our kids. And then that makes us probably a little more anxious or heightened. But sometimes it takes a kiddo time to process. It's okay for a pause. I often suggest to parents, like, have a set time that you check in with your kids. Like, whatever it's about. It could be about these guys, it could be about college, but it could even be about your weekly work. So instead of every night at dinner, you keep asking your kid, like, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? They don't want to talk about that. Maybe they want to talk about their day. So maybe it's on Sundays at noon or 1, you guys sit down and you have whatever agenda you have, or you're going for a drive, or it's at dinner, or you're taking them for Starbucks or something like that. But it's good to take the time so that they know it's coming. They can be thoughtful and they can plan. You get out what you'd like to talk about in your agenda in a thoughtful way, and they also get to prepare for that.
How do you convince kids when they're not talking to you and they need to talk to somebody to go to a school counselor, or because that feels like a scary thing particularly for a kid who hasn't had therapy, or maybe it's not really something that is talked about a lot at home, but they need help. So what do you like? Okay, you're not talking to me. Why don't you go talk to Miss Fowler? What is that? How do you get them to do it?
So a couple of things. Some kids are ready to do that. Some kids are not, and not to be gender stereotypical, but females will come in and they are ready to talk. They're ready to just sit and kind of debrief and spill and problem solve. And sometimes the guys are not as willing and ready to do that. And maybe that's the social agenda, right? Or what they've been taught or what they've been told or what society says, boys don't cry or whatnot. But how do you get them to go? Suggest it. Have you ever talked with your school counselor? Or what about the social work or the nurse? Or like find out who their trusted adult is. And if they're like, no, Mom, leave me alone. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about. That's so not going to happen. Then maybe you reach out to the school counselor. And then we have our ways of figuring out how to have a conversation with a kiddo they don't even know, we're really picking their brain and having a conversation to get to the bottom of things. So it's our job to be able to figure that out in a delicate way, hopefully. But also, if that doesn't work, pediatrician and say, I'm not going to come in with you, but I did tell, Dr. Smith what's going on and you can talk to them. Or you can even go right to, would you like to talk to a therapist outside of school? Because it's someone who's completely not biased. You talk to them about whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to be there. Sometimes kids are like, yeah, I just want to talk to somebody else. And it's not that they don't love you. Sometimes they're scared and they need some time. Or it's a peer, right? But that's a lot to put it on a peer.
It is. But there are a couple places I want to go with this because we're talking about mental health. It's hard to even talk about, but because sometimes it feels like you don't want to talk about the worst case scenario, which is often, I shouldn't say often, but it is suicide.
Yeah.
And part of the group that you're with is addressing mental health issues in hopes of getting it before we get to a place where we can't reverse things.
Right, like spreading the awareness early.
And I think that as a parent, it feels like scary to talk about. And I know that's a misconception, right? That like you're not planting an idea in a child's head, but it is really important to talk about these things with the kids.
Yeah.
And you have a peer-to-peer group that helps bridge the gap between the scary school counselor, which you're not scary at all, but like going to an adult.
Right.
Finding peers and talking with them first.
Yeah.
So tell me what this group is.
It's a great bridge, right? And so like you said, sometimes kids don't even know who to talk to at school or they just don't have that connection. I am also a co-advisor of National Honor Society. And last year there was a group of 4 or 6 kids who went to the convention and there was a speaker. The theme was mental health. And so all of the schools who have chapters in Maine were there. And there was a speaker named Jim Johnson. And his son committed suicide and his family started this foundation called Kyle Cares. And he was telling us about different ways to help our school embed programming and awareness for mental health and suicide awareness. And a student, Charlie Anania, and there was another student, Charlie Moore. We went and introduced ourselves and just talked to him. Through that conversation, he sent us some information. Charlie wrote a grant with a couple other kids that we then submitted to be able to get some funds off the ground to start this group. And Active Minds is the platform that really helps. Kyle Cares is an organization who helps link you to other organizations to help your school. So Active Minds.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
It's been a fast growing group. It started with 3-4 kids. And now some of our meetings, we have 50, 60 plus kids. And so these kids are talking about it's okay not to be okay. And they're promoting ways to identify themselves in the Green Bandana Project. You can talk a little bit about that when they talk. But also the stigma around peer groups, right? I talked about how sometimes boys are not necessarily ones to step up. Sometimes athletes are, I have to be okay. And so there's different stigmas that we have learned. So the students at every single season of every single sport have spoken at one game with the opposing team as well, all the spectators. Kiddos wear green for mental health. And our officers talk about what the club is, what it's about, how you can join, how you identify them. They'll talk about the green bandana. So we walk around I have a green bandana on my bag, and teachers have those things too. So it's a great group to be able to spread the awareness, because kids just don't know where to go or who to ask. And so if a kiddo goes up to one of our students, that student who's in the club will bring the soft handoff. They'll come to a trusted adult. They will say, hey, this kiddo approached me. Can we have this conversation? And that's where the kids are not counseling their peers, but they are listening to them. They're being open to helping them also find their resources. That's basically the premise of that. The kiddos wrote a grant, and we brought in 2 mental health speakers for the entire school. And these kids were so vulnerable. Our officers, they spoke about themselves in front of the entire school to say, like, it's everybody and it's okay. And the benefits that we have seen, myself as a professional in the building, are profound. I always think to myself, like, saving one life, what it is for the family, what it is for the kid. And it's been multiple children coming forward to their peers, or kids in the group who know something's going on and come to the trusted adult so then they can help intervene. It's pretty awesome. And then there are 2 members who are the 2 presidents who are putting together on their own this awesome 5K to also bring the larger community, right? Not just our community, but expanding it beyond there. There are 2 other chapters in Maine, Freeport and Cape Elizabeth. And we're hoping that it keeps spreading. And it's also in colleges, and it's all around the country.
And I think too, just while social media has played a major role in mental health, I think people do talk about it a lot more. And on social media, you can see people that are talking about it.
Right.
There's less stigma around it. We've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And this is one of those steps forward. And this really sounds like just taking one baby step to get help instead of taking the leap to go to an adult.
But I also think, though, that with the programming for the adults to hear in the building, they can hear what it's like to be a teen right now, because we're in our own lane, right?
Yes.
As a teacher, we've got to get our curriculum out. We've got to make sure we're meeting the standards, and we're, helping the kids access their education. But we don't know what they're going through every day. The things that kids are coming into my office about, I sit there after and think, how are they walking through the building, a lot of them? And it's different situations. And so having the faculty hear that too bridges a connection, I think. It affords them to see, like, what it is to be a youth today. And for parents, like, what do we do? What do I see? What do I need?
What are we looking for?
Right.
Yeah.
And then administration too, because through Active Minds and Kyle Cares, these guys are writing grants, and we're also able to bring district-wide programming, right? And so there are wellness goals for the district. So it really kind of encompasses all of it. We're a small part, but it's mighty and fast growing. And I think it's great.
So we want to talk to a couple of the members. If there was one piece of advice or one takeaway that you might have for parents when it comes to this, what would that be?
I would say absolutely to be involved and attentive in your child's life in the way of just being observant. Not that parents are not involved in their kids' lives, but sometimes we're overly involved. I call it Black Hawk Down, right?
Fair. Yeah.
And sometimes very, very, very hands off. But being able to really just being observant without peppering questions and things like that, I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would have. What are you noticing? And then how do you address that? And there are a lot of great resources. And so it's hard. It is hard, but there is a lot of resources. There are a lot of people. There is also hard to get into counselors and social workers, and accessing that is tough, but the school can help. Pediatricians, like I said, can help, but just being observant. What are you seeing? And it's okay to talk to your kid, and it's okay that they might balk at it, but to keep asking in a thoughtful, kind way and
I think
giving them
that's
some
the key.
space.
Yeah, the key is just to keep going because, I've had plenty of eye rolls in
Oh.
my day and like, ugh,
Professional
I'm
eye
fine.
rolling.
Or it's not that deep, as you say. Melissa, thank you so much. We want to bring in Charlie and Sean
Thank you.
into the conversation. Excellent. Sean and Charlie, I'm going to start out with the same question to you guys that I did with Melissa, Mrs. Fowler, as you know her. But what is happening inside schools, high schools today, that we as parents, we don't know? Like, what are some of the things that come to mind that are kind of happening inside those walls that aren't making its way back home?
I mean, to stress what Miss Fowler said is social media is a huge thing. I think that's in school. It's constantly what everyone's talking about. It's constantly what's going around, like pictures, photos, like Instagram reels, like Instagram, TikTok. Like, those are the biggest things in school
During the school day.
Yeah, and it's just like everyone's on their phone usually, and once again, you said notifications. I think a huge thing is Power School. Our school uses Power School, and getting the notifications from Power School about grades constantly, as well as your parents getting them, and it's very stressful on kids. And I think that's a huge thing, not only with Charlie and I, but I can tell you that everyone in our school feels stressed getting the Power School notifications and the grade updates, and then having parents as well text about them.
Can you turn that off?
Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
right. Okay.
But on top of all that, just the workload. A lot of students at Greeley High School are AP, honor, IB students, and even CP classes. Like, the workload is hard. You go through one class and you're like, okay, I have a lot of homework from this class. And then you're at the next class and you're like, okay, I got a lot of homework from this class. And then, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. It's hard for students who are still developing time management and trying to get through the day without completely collapsing.
Are you guys talking to each other? Because sometimes just talking about when you're feeling stressed, whether you're an adult or a kid, and, as we talked about earlier, that sometimes kids don't come home and like just share it all. But are you venting to each other to at least get that off your chest?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have close friends, and I think at the end of the day, you usually end up talking to them about what happened, and maybe there was like a big thing that happened in class, and you just talk about that for a bit. But I mean, I can say for myself that I definitely can find myself just venting about what happened throughout the day to someone.
Yeah, and I can agree with Sean on that. And I definitely see it a lot, especially like in study halls when you get a break from some of the work. Yeah, so like you're just with friends, you're talking about how hard this assignment is, you're talking about what you need to do tonight, tomorrow, what sports is going to look like. Do you have a meet or a game on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, meets can last until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
I don't schedule anything on meet days. So.
Yeah, and then you have homework and everything.
Exactly.
Actually, my daughter came home from a meet just last night. It was like 8:30, almost 9 o'clock at night, and then has a big math test today and was up until 11:30.
Really
woke
hard.
up very stressed. Got to school early. So yeah, no, I hear you guys. That it is a lot. I want to talk a little bit about like the importance of peer-to-peer conversations when it comes to mental health. Why do you think having those kind of peer-to-peer relationships are so important?
I think the peer-to-peer relationship's really important just because it's someone like you. They're going through the same things as you, maybe a little different because not everyone's the same, but you're able to talk about similar topics. Maybe you do the same sport. Maybe you're in the same class. Maybe you like the same video games, something. Maybe your parents parent you the same. It's definitely just nice to get another opinion and know you're not alone.
Yeah, to express what Charlie said at the end there is, it's just like the peer relationship is it's nice knowing that you're just not the only one who went through that, and opening up to a friend or a fellow peer, and just knowing that you guys are both like going through the same thing. You guys can both talk about it together.
Do you talk about mental health challenges like in a serious way? I mean, it's, one thing to be like, oh, I'm so stressed out about class or school, but like, do you and I'm asking as a parent, like just hoping that this is happening with my kids, but like I am really stressed out, like actual heart to heart about mental health?
Yeah. So part of the things that Kyle Cares works to is ending the stigma. And that stigma is we don't talk about mental health. You don't. It's be a man, grow up. It's not okay to share your problems because everyone else has problems. So just deal with it. I definitely think that stigma is still in play nowadays, because for me at least, I don't get deep into things, and it's a lot of surface for me, just because a lot's going on. I definitely, yeah, it's all I don't get deep into it, I guess, but if I need to get into it, I get into it. Like,
you
it's
have
not
a friend, you have
exactly,
somebody who could confide in. Yeah.
So Mount, I guess what we don't I can't say that I'd find like myself saying like I got like really bad mental health issues to one of my friends, but I think the stress word is used a lot. I think you can definitely find Charlie and I and our friends saying that like we're stressed for this big test, or like this is stressing me out. But like we'll get through it and usually end up and doing pretty well together.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just getting that off your chest,
Yeah, exactly.
instead of keeping it inside. And, the group Kyle Cares, which we want to talk a little bit about, and it's a great organization, whether it's at this chapter or just the concept behind it is having kids at school or teenagers, young adults at school who, instead of taking that full step to a teacher, a counselor, a nurse, whoever it might be, you guys kind of bridge that gap. Can you tell me, one, why did you want to get involved in that? And two, why do you feel like it's important?
Yeah, so I'll start. I really wanted to get involved with Kyle Cares because 2 years ago I had a health issue, and that really had long-lasting effects after or during my recovery with my mental health.
Mm-hmm. How so?
So I was all of a sudden my life had just come to a complete halt. I wasn't doing well in school. Sports were not the same. I couldn't play some of the sports that I had recently loved. And, I wasn't hanging out with some of my friends. And it was hard, but I had a community to fall back on. And one of the things I love about Kyle Cares is I want to provide that community to other people who feel like they don't have that community. That's my personal goal. And then I forgot what your second question was.
Well, it sounds like that's why it's important, right?
Yeah.
To give those kids a place to fall back on.
And I found out that Charlie was going through that stuff and he was in the hospital, and I didn't have any contact with him at the time, but I had my dad reach out to his mom because they had originally coached, and we were just trying to check up on him because we knew that, like, obviously I heard he wouldn't be able to play the sports he loved. And as being two athletes, I can't imagine how tough that is for someone. So I just felt that it was important for someone in that situation to be known that we're out here for him and we're on his side. So I think Kyle Cares is doing a great job with that, especially at our school, just making sure that everyone in our school has someone else out there. And I think that we definitely make the harder part easy for students at our school when they reach out to us.
And what is the harder part?
Just reaching out. Expressing.
That's the toughest part.
So tell me how it works then, because there are, teenagers like you who, is there training? Like what?
So like I said earlier, it's not a normal to talk about the deep stuff, right? Yeah. So it's hard for kids to get through that lump of, opening up. But what we as a chapter have done is host events. Like Miss Fowler said, the sport game talks and how to get involved. We've had a speaker come to our school, not only for students, but also for parents, psychiatrist came to the school and talked to parents about how to deal with your child's mental health problems. Also, I think what the greatest thing, and maybe Sean can touch a little bit on this, is the Green Bandana Project.
Tell me about that.
So the Green Bandana Project is It's a great movement. And not only it didn't start in our school, but a bunch of Kyle Cares chapters around the world have done it. But we set up a station in our hallway at our school, in the doorway of where everyone comes in the morning. And so we just had green bandanas with a pledge saying, "You'll do your best. You'll do whatever you can to help others and be an output or be a person that anyone can come to you and talk to you about their struggles, their needs, and you're just an open person to talk to. And by wearing the green bandana, you're someone that anyone can come to whenever they need something."
Have people come to you?
Absolutely.
They
Yes.
have. Okay. Tell me what they say.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just run through the story. So I was at a Kyle Cares benefit with Sean and a couple other of the officers at the Sicilian table in Falmouth, and this person contacted me who was at the event and said he was kind of going through a tough time. His friends were not being really great friends, and he didn't really know anyone else to talk to. And I had been with him on the football team, and I like to say I was kind of a mentor to him, but and I'm very happy he felt open to talk to me. But I scheduled a meeting with Miss Fowler. I contacted Miss Fowler and I said, "Hey, there's this kid who's struggling a little bit." And I told him that I contacted Miss Fowler, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if you stay for the meeting?" And so I stayed for the meeting, and we talked about what was going on. I didn't say anything. I was just there for support, and now he's getting the help he needs from social workers, guidance counselors, and I think he's doing great.
It's brave to come forward too,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. Have kids come to you at school and seen the green bandana and reached out in any way?
Not that we have known of, but I mean, many kids have just come up to us and been like I would like to be a part of this club because I have family who have issues with mental health, and they want to spread awareness and help support this cause, and whether it's something that's affected them or them just wanting to be
Involved.
Yeah.
It feel like there's a lot of pressure though? I mean, for you kids to have other kids coming to you to say, "Look, I'm really struggling." Like, how do you sort of find the balance for your own mental health? Because I would imagine you could hear some pretty heavy, sad things.
So one of the things that we take into account is we're not the therapists. We're not the guidance counselors. We're just a pathway. We get kids to the help they need, and it can be hard to listen to some of the things they said, but it's definitely just we're just the pathway. We're the pathway, and we get them to the help they need.
And that it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, back in my day, which I won't even go there, but like, we just didn't talk about these things growing up. So, hopefully it's just your generation is set up on a better path, that mental health is health.
I think a big thing that Kyle Cares at our school does great is that all of our leaders on our board open themselves up to the whole club and express like what they've gone through and what their challenges are and how they got through it, so that the others in the club know that they are going through this, and if the kids in the club are also going through it, that they can get through it as well.
What do you think us parents should know about our teens and mental health?
It's not like what it was back when you went to school. There's a lot, and I think social media is the major cause of that. The ability to know everything all at once is a little scary and overwhelming to a lot of people, and it's really hard for a kid who's developing brain functions and going through the stages of just growth to handle that. And just to be open, to be, like Miss Fowler said, observe, just be there for them, and let them know that. And I think they'll open up to you when they feel they can.
Yeah. If there was one piece of advice that you have as teenagers to parents, like what would you tell parents? Like, what should they take away from this conversation?
I think one thing that's important, and just what comes to mind first, is that school's a tough place to be for a kid. All the social interactions, all the schoolwork, all the adults that you're needing to go throughout the day. I think it's always important just to check in with them at the end of the day and just ask, how was their day? I think that's the biggest thing. Like going home and having my parents there, my mom especially, just being there and saying like, how was the day? Like she asks that almost every day. And I think that's, you're just then like, whether you do open up to your parents or not, you're just there to like, you can say whatever you want to say. And you can talk about what happened and what you're excited for.
And then even when the kids don't respond, they know we're there. So that's a good, I mean, as a parent, that's a good takeaway, because I can't tell you how many times I've said, how was your day, bud? Mm-hmm. And it's like, fine. What'd you do? Yeah. Nothing. Okay. But you're listening, I guess.
Exactly. I think that's, it can be a little disheartening, and I'm not a parent, obviously, but I think I can see how it can be disheartening to see your kid not respond. But I think if you're there for them and they know you're there for them, they'll open up to you.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I do want to mention that we'll have a lot of resources on this very topic, and Kyle cares on WGME.com/raising me. Charlie and Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Charlie and Sean and Melissa, and was just so impressed by those young men. I also walked away with feeling some gratitude to hear that mental health is in much more of the conversation, not shied away from like it was so often back when we were growing up. There is so much more pressure, different kinds of pressure that we can only imagine for these kids. I mean, social media, and we talk about this all the time, but it is so much, from the binging and pinging of the notifications to the unrealistic expectations, constantly being plugged in on everything. Even as we talked about today, it's the classroom stuff too. It's relentless. So some grace for our kids. And I leave with that feeling for my own high schooler. And I got to tell you, after speaking with Charlie and Sean, my sense is that the future is bright with kids like these leading the way. We have more information on Kyle Cares Foundation, as well as additional resources in the show notes and our website. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. This episode is edited by Megan Littlefield and produced with Nate Eldridge. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, if this helped you in any way, please consider sharing it on your Instagram stories as well, so others can find the message. Wherever you are, I hope you learned something new and get to take a little time for you.